Hey there, career seekers. Welcome to Find Your Passion Career. I'm here to help you find a career you like, and dare I say, possibly even love. I'm your host, Amanda Nachman. I'm the founder and CEO of College Magazine. After working with thousands of college students, I've noticed that when it comes to career, there's a lot to demystify. Let's get started. Hi, everyone. Today I have with me Laurie Ruettimann. She's the author of the book, Betting on You, How to Put Yourself First and Finally Take Control of Your Career. She's a former human resources leader turned writer, entrepreneur, and speaker. CNN recognized her as one of the top 5 career advisors in the United States, and her work has been featured on NPR, The New Yorker, USA Today, The Wall Street Journal, and Vox. She frequently delivers keynote speeches at businesses and management events around the world and hosts a popular podcast focused on fixing work. She lives with her husband and cats in Raleigh, North Carolina. Welcome to the podcast, Laurie.
Thanks, Amanda. I'm happy to be here. You know, it's always good to see you, and it's even more fun to talk about all things related to work. So let's do this.
Yeah. Well, I am a big fan of your book, Betting on You. And I would love to kick off there just hearing about, what inspired you to write this book and give this message.
Well, for many years, I worked and lived a life that I didn't enjoy. And I finally decided at one point that I couldn't do it anymore. And from there, I had a lot of decisions to make about how I would live, what my values were, how I would make money, how I would relate to other people in the world. And I went on this journey to really bet on myself and reboot my life. And, when you have a little bit of success, people ask about it. And over the years, people have asked me to tell my story. So I wrote this book, Betting on You, and it anchors itself in my story of change and transformation. But I try not to be a narcissist and just talk about myself. So I include stories of other people who were stuck in their careers or were at a crossroads and the decisions they made that paid off. So yeah, that's what Betting on You is all about.
And, I felt inspired by your book as a fellow entrepreneur to continue to bet on myself, because I feel like there's these moments where we do have this doubt and we want to maybe go a direction that we feel a lot of pressure from society telling us to go in this way versus listening to our gut, listening to our passions. In the book, you talk about slacking. I would love for you to tell me, why do you encourage people to slack as a way of betting on themselves?
Yeah. I have to say, I am a Gen Xer. And so we grew up with the word slacker. It's kind of this pejorative term. It was Bart Simpson, it was Ferris Bueller, it was all of these characters who didn't care. But, I see slackers as people who do what they need to do and get the job done, and then have these amazing outer lives. And one of the things I truly believe is that we fix work by fixing ourselves first. So we should have these amazing lives, invest in our underdeveloped personal lives and bring that good stuff to work, but not over index on our jobs. And if you look around at the people who have succeeded most in this world, like you think of the Steve Jobs and I don't know, all the Steves, Steve Ballmer, Steve Wozniak, like all the Steves, they had these 9-to-5 jobs, right? They had these careers, but they were just curious about other things. And the other things actually ended up being the paths that they went on. So I encourage everybody to be a slacker, to have a hobby, to have interests, to do the work that they're doing, but to look around them and see other opportunities. And maybe those other opportunities can be the things that actually transform their lives.
So don't be that person that is obsessed with work, stays late all the time, is dying for the cause.
Yeah, it's real funny about those people, the ones who are really super passionate about procurement or logistics or marketing or PR. First of all, they're one-dimensional and not very interesting. Second of all, they don't often have very good personal relationships outside of work. And then when work lets them down, which work always does, instead of having this reaction like, okay, work stinks right now, but I'm going to go home and I'm going to do my hobby and connect with other people, they're devastated because work is all they have. And so even if you love your job, and I mean really love your job, and that's cool, you should still have other things outside of your life because work is a place where we go to solve problems. It's a problem-based relationship. So even if we're excited about solving those problems, it's still tough on our hearts from time to time. So, if you're stuck at work and it's really getting you down, you don't necessarily have to quit. That's not my message. But instead of working 50 hours a week, work 42. No one's going to know the difference. And go spend those other 8 hours pursuing something else, like go get some ice cream, go to the movies if the movies are open in your local town. Like, do something to free your brain up so that you can get some space and eventually fall back in love with that job.
hmm I'm a big believer that we should be passionate about our work or find passion within our work. But I agree, it's not everything. And a point that you make in the book is living our lives like a business.
Mhm.
And I really like this message because the business isn't taking everything personally. Okay, so I'm going to let you explain.
Well, sure. A lot of people hear the phrase live your life like a business and they think, that's too detached for me. I want my identity to be in my work. And I think you can have an identity that's rooted in the work that you do and still run your life like a business where you go, you solve problems, you're emotionally regulated, you're mature. But it's kind of like the way people tell you to manage money. You don't invest everything in one stock. You have a little bit of money in stock. Maybe you have some money in a bank account. Maybe you have some money, I don't know, in a magic leprechaun fund. I don't know how people manage their money, but you are differentiated. And I think that's a really important way to live life. So when you go to work, whether it's the work you create as an entrepreneur or the work you do to solve problems for other people, you do it. You do it with integrity. You treat it like your most favorite client. You're excited, you're compassionate about what other people are going through, but ultimately you've got some other stuff going on in your life. And so when you leave that job, you go and do those other things. And I actually think it gives your brain time to cycle down, to calm down. And then when you go back to work in a couple of hours, in a couple of days, whatever it is, you've restored your brain so that it can tackle those projects in a fresh way. And so that's what I mean by running your life like a business, actually setting boundaries, setting hours, and then in those off hours, doing other things, frankly, Amanda, so that you're a more interesting human being.
You inspired me to get back into improv, reminding me like, hey, don't you do improv? And I'm like, yeah, just because of COVID, I wasn't really thinking about it because I'm like, oh, I can't gather. But actually, what a great opportunity to do improv virtually. And it was a
Yeah.
lot of fun. So you sparked that for me to get back into one of my hobbies.
Well, that's really terrific. I bought a camera to do live streaming. And it's a really great camera, one of these fancy DSLR cameras. And when I was younger, I really enjoyed photography, but the iPhone kind of took that out of me. And now that I have this amazing camera, I'm really inspired to learn how to use it again and to, I don't know, take pictures of my cats or when we travel again or whatever the hell I'm going to take pictures of. I'm not exactly sure, but I want to be able to use this piece of technology that I bought for more than just streaming my dumb face on the internet. So even I myself am practicing what I preach and learning how to do something different because when you're learning, you're growing. And when you're growing, you're thriving. And that's what life is all about. And a hobby is just another fun, interesting way to learn something new.
I think this goes for, just talking about the boundaries and creating time in your life to do other things besides just
Sure.
be focused on your career. I think this goes for someone that's job seeking that maybe isn't happy with their career and feels like, oh, I get back from work and now I'm job searching all the time. It's creating boundaries for that as well so that you're not fully consumed in this. I've got to be doing this. I've got to be doing this.
That's right. A good life, no matter your age, starts with your schedule. And so, do you want to look for a job 6 hours in the evening after you get home from work? Probably not. And it's diminishing returns anyway after the first 20 to 30 minutes. So, really getting tight about your time, scheduling it. A lot of people say to me, "Well, I'm young, I'm new in my career, and I don't feel like I can take time out of the day to go to the doctor, do the things I need to do." But I had a boss years ago who was like, as long as you're a strong performer, do it. put it on your calendar, because what it tells other people is not that you're at the doctor's office or you're running an errand. It tells other people when you are actually available to meet with them. So reframe that, see it as an opportunity to let people know, okay, well, I'm gone from 12 to 1. Look at all this other time you can schedule with me. Look at all this other availability I have on my calendar. So be mature, be direct, let people know when you are available, and don't focus when you're not there. So I think so many times people operate from this place of fear, of anxiety, of lack. And in the workplace, strong
Yeah.
performers at any age operate with confidence. And what's the difference between confidence and fear? For the most part, it's mindset. Like, dare
Mhm.
them to fire you. Dare them to fire you for taking 30 minutes to go run errands. Like, it's never going to happen. I worked in HR. We never fired anybody who was a strong performer for having clear boundaries and being okay about it. Like, it never happened.
Mhm. Well, and for someone starting out in their career, knowing this information, like, hey, I can
Yeah.
set boundaries right off the bat. I don't need to be running around like crazy and ragged and working nonstop just because I have so many projects. Ask, hey, what projects need to be prioritized? And speak up for yourself. Like Laurie's saying, advocate for yourself. A big message that I talk about on this podcast is the feeling of being qualified.
Mhm.
Uh, has there ever been a time that you felt unqualified?
So yes and no. My whole life, I've had messages around not being good enough or smart enough or capable enough, whether that's from my own family or from society or just working in a job like human resources. People will often say, "What do you know? You just work in HR." It's like, what do you
Mm,
mean, what do I know? Like, how dare you speak to me like that? And I think I've had a lot of really great people who've stepped up in my life who have said, don't take that. Like, you are worth more than that. And so it's remembering all of these messages. Now, the fact that I had all of these people in my life who said, don't listen to society, keep pushing forward, is an amazing privilege. Like, I'm so lucky I had that. And so, what I try to do is to remind everybody that feelings aren't facts. Like, just because somebody tells you something, they feel a certain way about you, or just because you feel a certain way about yourself, doesn't make it true. And we can actually test this through an exercise that I teach called the pre-mortem. So, if you feel unworthy for a job, you feel unworthy for an opportunity, you feel unworthy to take that next step and start a business,
you
you
read
can test.
that job description that has like so many bullet points, and you're like, absolutely not, or needs like 10 years of experience.
Yeah, yeah, you can test it out and say, how am I unqualified? How will I fail? So you set a
Mm,
timer for a minute and you test it out. Like, all right, you want to apply for a job that says 10 years of experience. How will you fail at this job interview? Well, you might not be a very good storyteller. You might not have 10 years of experience, and you might not be able to articulate the ways in which your 3 years of experiences are meaningful, right? You may not make good eye contact because you're nervous. You may get sweaty. You may fumble through telling a story. You may not have great references. Fine, set that timer for a minute and write down all those different ways that you're going to fail. And when the timer goes up, when that minute is done, look at that list. It looks like a list of failure. It looks like a list of the ways in which you're not qualified. But what it is a gift. Because if you start to tackle those individual bullet points, the ways that you're not qualified, what you're doing is you're giving yourself a greater chance of success. Before you do the thing you want to do, tackle those ways in which you're unqualified, and you actually give yourself a 30% greater chance of success when you try to do that thing. So that's called the pre-mortem. And it's just a way to kind of project into the future, figure out how you will fail, and then avoid it before you actually do it. It's been a huge gift in my life, and I love teaching it.
I love that. I can think of that applying for just about anything you're trying to tackle, like any challenge that comes your way. Like, what could fail?
Yeah, yeah, and it's not what might fail, not even what might could fail or mighta coulda, as they say here in North Carolina. It's what will fail. So I use it when I'm doing a project with my husband around the house. I write about this in the book. We wanted to renovate the kitchen, and we did a pre-mortem, and it was like, well, my husband's real rigorous. He's got standards. He knows exactly what he wants. I'm slower to these
He's the
things.
engineer, right?
He is an engineer, yeah, and I can't stick to a budget. Like for the life of me, I like things the way I like them. And if it's more money, I'm like, well, we'll figure that out down the road. And what we decided is let's just move and build the kitchen we want at some point and leave the kitchen we have in place and go out and enjoy restaurants and fine dining and all of that. So you can do this when you're going to see your family for Thanksgiving. How will Thanksgiving fail?
Oh, wow. I think everyone could probably write a novel on that one.
Right, right, right. Or a team building exercise. How will this fail? Or a meeting that's really important. How will this fail? And if you can predict failure, at least you give yourself a chance to fail in new and more interesting ways instead of the same way over and over again. So I like the exercise for job interviews, for really stressful meetings, especially for young professionals. Don't fail in the same expected ways over and over again. Surprise yourself and be more successful.
Yeah. Okay. So what does qualified mean to you? Because it sounds like it's to you, it's not a fact.
No, no. I think qualified is not written in stone.
Mm-hmm.
Qualified is not, sent down from the heavens. Qualified is subjective. Qualified can change, and qualified starts with you. If you feel qualified for something, you're almost there. Then the rest is all about persuasion and communication. But nobody should tell you whether or not you're qualified to do something. You know if you're qualified or not. And I think that's really important.
Yeah.
It's been the differentiator for me.
Yeah. I mean, it took me a long time to realize this, to see
Yeah,
that trend. And to realize that it's going to keep happening for whatever is next that you want to go after. You're going to feel unqualified for that,
that's right.
but it doesn't have to be that way.
No. And the weird thing about work and jobs, like traditional jobs, is that we think, especially women, think they have to be almost there to get the job. And most departments hire for 60% competency. So if you're like
Mm.
60% of the way there, apply. I would say apply at 40%, but
You're hearing
whatever.
from an inside HR perspective here.
Yeah,
60% is all they're looking
60%.
for. Stop trying to go for the A plus.
So if that says 10 years and you have 6, try it. If you have 4, try it. Well, all they can say is no, right? All they can say is no. Nobody gives you a black mark on your record for trying. And, in the book, I tell a story of a guy who wanted to get better at interviewing and wanted to get better at like betting on himself. And so he started applying to jobs that he knew he could probably get, but never would want in a million years. And he got one of those jobs and they offered him a lot of money. They're like, oh my gosh, we love your confidence. We love the way you came in and just communicated who you are and what you're all about. And it was really great practice for him. And he turned that offer down. And you know what? Nobody cares. Nobody cares. I mean, maybe the business owner, the manager cared for like a hot minute, but had they hired him, they would have fired him in a heartbeat if they could replace him with a robot. So remember, work feels like family, but it's still all about transactions. And what did this individual get? He got practice at saying yes, and he got practice at saying no. So go out there, interview for jobs you would never take in a million years, and get good at betting on yourself and communicating your value proposition.
Yeah, I love that story. Tell me about the object you brought and how it reflects your passion.
Well, I wanted to bring my cat Roxy because she's such a sweetheart and I'm really passionate about animal rescue, but Roxy ran off. And so I brought one of her cat toys.
Oh,
I foster cats and dogs, although I just have cats in my house right now. But Roxy is actually a cat that I walked past at Petco and I went, you're mine. There you go.
oh, that's so sweet. I'm also passionate about animals. I love that.
Oh, of course, of course. So.
Well, and tell me, how does your career as a human resources leader, a writer, a speaker, a podcaster, you are doing a lot. How does this align with your passions?
Sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. I mean, I'm passionate about travel and I'm passionate about animal rescue. And I'm also passionate about helping people recognize that their work is not their worth, that they're entitled to a really great full life, regardless of their job title and their salary. They're entitled to an education and love and respect. And the work that I do brings me around people who also believe that. So I'm excited about that. Gives me an opportunity to communicate that message subversively in a corporation, right? And it also puts money in my bank account so I can do the things that I love outside of work. So it's pretty good. No complaints.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, well, what career advice do you have for young professionals today? People just joining the workforce, maybe they're in their first or second job or looking.
Yeah. Really, I do want people to hear that their work is not their worth. That's a hard message when you're young because the world is telling you invest in your career, earn a lot. But statistics say that your prime earning years are in your late 30s and 40s. What I want people to hear is in their 20s and in their early 30s, the way you get to those prime earning years is by developing relationships, getting people to like, know, and trust you. And so that's different than like working 60 hours a week and constantly performing and thinking that the work you do when you're 26 years old is going to be anything like the work you do when you're 46 years old. It's going to be different.
Yeah. And those relationships, they're the ones that are giving you those messages that you need to hear when you do feel unqualified. As you were saying earlier, that you had those people in your corner.
Totally.
And we all need that. We all need that reminder.
So it's really my mission when I talk to like Gen X and Boomer audiences to remind them that they need to continue to give back.
Yeah, I love that.
Hmm.
All right. Well, if you're tuning in today to Laurie, I want to encourage you to bet on yourself,
Sure.
get her book, and find time in your schedule, carve it out to bet on yourself, to build upon your interesting, and find those hobbies and make them a priority because you want to be well rounded. You want to live an interesting life, and your life is not your work.
That's right.
So,
Thank you so much, Amanda, for the opportunity. I love what you're doing. I'm such a big fan, and it's always fun to spend time with you.
oh, thanks, Laurie. It's so wonderful to speak with you. Thanks for being on the podcast, and thank you all for tuning in.
Thanks for listening to our show. Be sure to check out the show notes and email any questions to yourpassioncareer@gmail.com. Bye.